Hi everyone, today we're going to make this Székely cabbage stew. Let's take a look at the ingredients. I bought 2 kilograms of sauerkraut and I usually don't pour off or rinse the juice, but I did set aside the extra liquid that was underneath. I got a bunch of smoked things, Kolozsvár bacon, ham, and smoked bacon. Of course, you'll also need garlic, onions, salt, pepper, paprika, ground cumin, bay leaf, and I like to add just a little bit of dill as well. I put them over there. Some tomato paste, just in case, but in the end I didn't actually add it to the dish. I bought pork shoulder. This is 2 kilograms of shoulder. I much prefer it because it's a much more tender meat, but it's also very tasty with leg meat, whichever you like or prefer. Some people put in pork knuckles. So this is really one of those dishes you can imagine in 800 different ways. This is my variation, my style, okay? Everyone makes it differently, so give it a try if you feel like it. Now I'll start chopping up the meat. It's actually pretty interesting, by the way, because on camera, as I'm looking at it now, it looks like these are huge, massive cubes, but they're not. They're small cubes. It's just that from this angle, they look big. But while I'm chopping the meat, let me get back to the cabbage. Some people usually rinse it with water, squeeze it out, and then add it in. We like our Székely cabbage to be sour, but it really, really depends on the quality of the cabbage. And I would really appreciate it if you could recommend some good ones in Budapest. A good pickled good shop, because to be honest, I haven't been able to find good sauerkraut anywhere for years. They all have this tartaric acid taste, or they're just bland, or they have this really weird, almost spoiled sour flavor. Usually I buy it at Lidl or Aldi. This time I got it at Osan. It's not bad actually, but I still remember the taste of those cabbages I used to get from my favorite pickled goods shop in the 16th district, but now even they make some terribly flavored pickles, unfortunately. So the bacon, so it looks like these are really big cubes, but they're not. Just look at this beautiful ham. I actually got this at the big market hall. If you watched the Christmas Vlogmas videos, you saw it there. It was an incredible price and it was beautiful and really, really delicious. And that's why I'm sure I'll go back to that butcher again. It was hard to resist eating this ham when I started slicing it. It's honestly so good. For me, Székely cabbage just isn't the same without a smoky flavor. Of course, if you don't like the smoky flavor, you can leave these out. And if you couldn't buy or didn't have access to enough smoked products, you can substitute with smoked cubes. It gives a really great flavor. When I suddenly decide to make Székely cabbage, I often leave out the smoked products and just add these smoked cubes, and it will give you the same taste, by the way. This is a really, really good thing. If you haven't tried it yet, feel free to use it. I'll insert a picture here of the one I usually use. While the bacon is already frying, my daughter, I'm so happy she's helping, starts chopping the onions with my favorite chopper. Yes, it's really that easy. She can pull the cord without any trouble and chop the onions with it. It's important to me that they help me in the kitchen because I really want them to learn how to cook. At their age, I was already cooking a lot myself, and I think it's a really great thing if someone knows how to cook because as you can see, they've browned really nicely the bacon pieces, and then I put the onions in to saute. Now I'm going to put the garlic cloves into the same onion chopper, and this little chopper will chop them up really nicely for me too. I really love it. So the onions are done in the meantime, and now it's time for the meat. A lot of people would add water at this point and then put in the meat, but I definitely don't do that because I believe that a stew is called a stew because you sear the meat first. So we definitely need to toss it around in this hot fat, and I've added the smoked meats as well. This is what really gives it an amazing flavor, by the way. I let it start to fry a little, and then I begin to season it. I add the sweet peppers. This is 2 peppers. Sorry, I only put one in the picture, but I saw that would be too little, so I chopped up another one. So that's 2 peppers, and now the spices can go in. Paprika powder, still with my not so great paprika, which is almost finished now and basically turns the dish orange instead of red. That's why I put in more than usual. I always say when you see that beautiful Hungarian color, that nice red color in the dish, add as much as it takes to get there. With good paprika, it would be about 2 tablespoons, but here I added much more. Bay leaves, I put in 4 here, 2 teaspoons of pepper, but I'll write out the recipe under the video anyway. I didn't add any salt because the dishes are salty enough, but if needed, I'll salt it later. Now I'm adding half a tablespoon of ground cumin and I'll quickly add the tomatoes as well and basically start mixing everything together. Sorry for always stirring so awkwardly, but I have the camera in my other hand. And now, as you can see, I'm adding about a quarter teaspoon of dill to the dish. This will give it that pleasant flavor. And then comes the 2 heaping tablespoons of minced garlic. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name for a moment. So this is what the dish looks like after I've sauteed it. And at this point, I add about 400 to 500 milliliters of water. Look, make sure it has this kind of consistency when you put the lid on so you can cook it properly and keep stirring it. An hour has passed. That's how long it took for my meat to cook. And I always just put the pickled cabbage right on top like this. The cabbage, and I just spread it out on top like this. I don't usually mix it in right away, and then I put the lid back on. I also sprinkled on a teaspoon or about 1/2 a tablespoon of paprika. This is a new batch, and thankfully it has a nice color, and I let it start cooking for about 20 to 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I take the rest of my sour cream. This is actually 3 tablespoons, but there was very little left, so I had to scoop it out in several portions, and I add just a little bit of water to it. With about 2 deciliters of water, and I start mixing it together. Some people make this with a sour cream roux, and I think that's delicious too, but I'm not going to add sour cream this time because there's already plenty of meat and cabbage in it, so I don't need to thicken the dish. If there was less of either ingredient, I definitely would have added sour cream too, and actually, I would have mixed some flour into the sour cream as well. All right, I want this to be a bit thinner, so I added more water. So I think I used about 3 deciliters of water in total. That's about how much I put in here. When you see this cream-like consistency, that's when I added it. And now all that's left is to mix it in, and I cooked it for another 1 or 2 minutes, and the masterpiece was done. This really is a divinely delicious cabbage dish, so give the recipe a try. Well, as you're used to, the recipe will be at the end of the video. Just like in all my cooking videos, you'll find the recipe at the end and also in the description. I hope you'll like it too, so be sure to let me know. Let me know how yours turned out. All you have to do is quickly subscribe to the channel because for me, that's the biggest gift and recognition. So if you're watching, make sure to subscribe. Thank you so much and come join me in the next video too. Bye.